I basically became an entrepreneur when no one really talked about entrepreneurs. I started my first company at 18. Then I started subsequent companies after that, built several multi-million-dollar companies in a row, just kept being home run after home run. It's kind of a life where you keep reiterating yourself and reinventing yourself. People go through journeys and the lives are stories. And that's really what we're made up of. You set forth this vision of who you are as a leader that your employees look to. To me, being a leader is like being a lighthouse, like a beacon.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. I'm your host, Nicky. Boy, do we have an exciting guest lined up for you today. Today's guest is a Forbes top 50 rated host of 9 podcasts at the Chris Voss Podcast Network with over 700 episodes. Chris Voss is a best-selling author of multiple books. He has a new book out called Beacons of Leadership, which we're going to be talking about today. And this is a man that I've gotten to know a little bit, and I got to tell you, I like him. I know you're going to like him too. I'm speaking, of course, of none other than the one, the only, the legendary Chris Voss. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Yeah. You said somebody's exciting coming on. Are they coming on like in a minute or two or something like that? Thank you. I certainly appreciate it, Nick. Thank you for the introduction. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your audience for having me on the show.
My pleasure, brother. My pleasure.
There you go. And we had you on our show recently.
You did. You did.
Yeah. And I need to update that bio. We're like 11 under shows. It's an old bio.
It's an old bio. Okay, so you're 11.
I was like, listen to that going, man, somebody needs to rewrite that thing. So thanks for having me on the show. I certainly appreciate it. And it's wonderful to spend some time with you again.
Yeah, man, it's great to be here, brother. Really, really great to be here. So, Chris, this show is a show that caters to the entrepreneur. It caters to the society's greatest hero, as far as I'm concerned. Entrepreneurs are the men and the women with the heart, the guts to go after their dreams. And these folks listen to this show because what they want to do is they want to learn from you. They want to learn from you how they can make their lives better, how they can make their businesses better. And you got a new book out right now, which is chock full of good information about that. But before we can get into all of that, they got to get to know you, man. They can't open their hearts up to you unless they know you. So tell us your backstory. How'd you get to be the great Chris Voss?
There you go. Well, my father and mother got together one night, and I think there was some drinking involved, and that's how I got to be the great Chris Voss. And that's kind of the short story.
Funny,
but no, well, you know, I'm not sure they thought it was funny once they found out they got that notification. In fact, you're like, oh God, what have we done? But you know, I think most parents have been there, right? That or when they become teenagers, then as parents, you go, oh my God, what have we done? So thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, my new book's available at Amazon, Beacons of Leadership. And you can go see me at thechrisvossshow.com. It all started, of course, with those two parents in that night, that one night in the back of a car. I don't know what the hell happened, but I think it was intentional. I don't know. That's what they tell me. I haven't found my adoption papers, but I grew up kind of with a family that struggled financially. My dad didn't have a college degree. He was always trying to make it get rich schemes. He was always in something trying to make something work. And I watched him go through his life and his struggle to make things work, to be a provider for his family. And he did the best he could, I think, as most parents do. And then around 18, I had an interesting experience. I was working at McDonald's. I talk about this story in my book. I was working at McDonald's. I had no idea what entrepreneurship is back when I was young, which was that 5,000 years ago, evidently, according to records they take where they check your bones. The Paleolithic area I think it was your pterodactylic area. You've been there. So I was just going through the work of McDonald's, flipping burgers, and I think I was working at Pizza Hut at the same time. And I had long hair. I was satanic.
Long hair.
I had long hair, and when I grew up, that was you were deemed as being of Satan if you had long hair. And I was living in Utah too at the same time. So, throughout my life, I grown up helping my dad at his subcontractor business. He'd had a little subcontractor business, plastering foundations and making money at that. He'd since kind of closed it down and moved on to other things. And but I knew how to do the trade, the hard work, the blue collar work, and I took and I was working at McDonald's, and a guy took a shine to me who was very religious, and he didn't like my Van Halen satanic Van Halen t-shirt concert shirts, and he didn't like my long hair, and he wanted me to cut my hair and told me that if I didn't, I would be out of a job. So, and I'm there making $3.85 an hour, whatever it was back then. I don't think it's changed much, evidently. So I didn't want to cut my hair because, when you're a teenager, that's a real big part of your identity and everything else. And so I noticed that the women who worked at McDonald's with me, they had their long hair and they wear those hair bobs up into their hat to keep the hair from falling into the food. So I asked them where they got them, and I went and bought me some, and I started wearing my long hair bobbed up into my hat. He thought he'd won the ultimate domination of me, and he was one of those guys who had some issues. And so for about a month or two, I got away with that. One day he caught me pulling the hair out. He lost it. He realized that he'd been suckered. I didn't intend to sucker him. Certainly it's my right to do what I want. But I took and got fired that day.
Whoa.
So I went home to my dad for long hair, because we know that what a grievance that is. We've all been there. And my dad said, well, what the hell are you going to do? Because, you're not a Gen Z or millennial. You can't stay here and not have a job. And so I was like, I don't know. He goes, why don't you just go, I've still got my credit account at the Economy Builder Supply, still got my tools back in the garage. Why don't you go hustle some cement and do some stucco work? And so I was like, sure, what the hell? So I was like this young 18-year-old kid going out to subcontractors. I basically became an entrepreneur when no one really talked about entrepreneurs. In fact, I didn't know I was an entrepreneur at the time. I was just like, I don't know, I'm trying to make a buck here. So I was going and meeting this young kid, to these mean old, gritty, salty construction people, and hitting them up for business. And they're like, we don't see kids like you. How do we know what you're doing? I'm like, I'll tell you what, I'm good at what I do. I'm very good at what I do. And I'll do the work. And if you like it, pay me and hire me for other jobs. And if you don't, it's for free. And they were, if contractors, they love work for free.
Love free.
So, so they were like, yeah, we don't have to pay you. Let's do that. And so I write about my book. I started my first company at 18. Then I started subsequent companies after that, built several multi-million-dollar companies in a row, just kept hitting home run after home run. And I talk about my book, how I got there, what I did, some of the different, what I call my CEO toolbox in the book, of different things that I use, different mechanisms I use. And that's how I kind of got here, through a lot of different twists and turns and cathartic times through life.
Well, that's a hell of a story, man. I mean, home run after home run. You throw that out there so casually, but that's a big deal, right? Like, I mean, how did you hit home run after home run? That's the first question I got for you.
That's a really good question. So I started my first company, and I did that for a while, but I realized I didn't want to work in labor. And there's nothing wrong with labor. I don't mean to shame it in any way, shape, or form. The people that can go out there and work with their bodies and their muscles and their back. And, there's guys that are just the salt of the earth that can do that work. But I'm old, fat, and lazy. And I knew that I'm missing a couple chromosomes or something. I don't know what the hell is. But I was just like, I don't want to be doing this when I'm 40 and 50, because I don't think I'm going to be able to pull it off. And I'm 50 now. And yeah, I don't do labor. I don't even pick stuff off of the floor when it falls. I just leave it there. So a few years later, and a few iterations of starting companies, the little ones would fail, and I kept practicing. I was in Harvard Business Review, studying business, planning to become a CEO of a company someday, doing everything I could to prepare, reading all sorts of business books, everything I could get into. I was studying and training to be the CEO of a major company someday, and planning on it, and just preparing myself mentally and information knowledge-wise, reading Peter Drucker books, Tom Peters, everything I could. And I found the right vehicle one day with a friend of mine that I've been friends with for most of my life. life. He came to me and his company had a problem. They're looking to hire a new company. I said, well, I know how to build that. And there was enough iterations of me practicing businesses that had failed, little businesses that failed. And we started this company. And I talk about my book. I went through my last training with my CEO, who kind of taught me the last few keys that I needed to my sensei training and start our first company. We started with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, $2,000. It was profitable within 3 months and became a multi-million-dollar company. Lasted for 13 years before we shut it down because it was just too much risk with cars and vehicles and stuff. And then a year and a half later, I started my mortgage company on top of running the career company for $4,000. And we had that profitable within 3 months. And it became a multi-million-dollar company, one of 3 companies we had in our empire. And after that, we just started a series of companies. And it was a pretty interesting ride. At one point, we were loaning out money, and we would take over white knight businesses and pull companies from bankruptcy. I tell a lot of the stories in my book, and so I just give a lot of that training that we went through in life. And of course, there's been a lot of cathartic times. In 2008, we lost our whole empire of companies and had to start a new gig over. We started the podcast, and we started social media and all those different things and consulting. All my employees would be like, "You should do consulting, Chris." And I'm like, when do you think I have the time? But 2008 kind of gave that. So it's kind of a life where you keep reiterating yourself and reinventing yourself.
So, man, you've started multiple multi-million-dollar companies, and then you became a consultant and a podcaster.
Yeah.
Why?
Partially because 2008 ruined everything, wiped everything on the planet. We had to come up with something new. So, we started consulting, coaching, and then podcasting. I've always been a big mouth. When you're the CEO of a company, especially when you've got thousands of employees, you constantly have to be presenting to them, selling to them. You're selling to the employees your vision. You're selling to the vendors your vision. You're selling to your board your vision. You're selling everybody you interact with. You're constantly selling them. Here's where our company is going. Here why you should do business with us. Here's why you should give us the best prices. Here's why what we're going to be doing is going to be awesome 10 years from if you're part of the ride that's going on with us, where we're going. It's the moment that you stand on those sandboxes and do the thing. I used to do our company newsletters back in the day before there was email. And so I've always been a mouth, always been that guy, even though I was fairly introverted as a child. You just have to be that voice. You're constantly selling. Everybody, investors, etc. So a podcast seemed to be like a great way for me to have a big mouth, use my mouth, and talk to people about stuff, talk to people about what I was interested in, try and share my knowledge. That social media kind of begat this whole thing of, well, share your knowledge, and then people will be like, this idiot knows what he's doing, maybe, and then they hire you for stuff. And plus I find things really interesting in life. I have a genuine curiosity of life. I heard I can't remember the CNN host Larry King said one time, he goes, I'm innately curious about people. He goes, I go on airplanes, I sit next to people. I'm like, who are you? What got you here? What got you through life? And so I'm very curious about people, the choices they make, because there's no perfect road. There's no life where if you go this way, you're perfect. I mean, maybe Elon Musk or something. I don't know. But, people go through journeys, and the lives are stories. And that's really what we're made up of. And many times cathartic, sometimes destructive journeys where your whole life gets wiped out. You lose your wife, you lose your children, you lose everything. Maybe sometimes you're living in your car and got to start over. And a lot of us, especially those of us at our age, we may have started over a couple different times, and we learn that we're not alone, and that it's okay, and that it's not the end of the world. I tell a story in the book about how my business partner of 12, 13 years, best friend of 22 years, someone I used to joke I'd bury a body with, walked into me one day, had stabbed me in the back, run one of our businesses in the ground to bankrupt everything so he wouldn't be debt free, handed me the keys and told me what he did. And I had 4 days to save the company from bankruptcy. Never thought that I would be able to survive without him. And, then I realized going through that cathartic moment that I had always been the guy. So, we go through these things.
It's funny. I had a business partner in my business as well. And we were friends. And he also had another business that he was working in. And it was causing tension because he was an operator in both. And I was annoyed because I felt I did more for our business than he did. And he didn't like it. So I attempted to convey that this wasn't fair from my point of view. Actually, I didn't attempt to. I conveyed it. He didn't accept it. Long story short is at one point, he just called me and he said, I don't want to be partners with you. And so he left. We had a year-long buyout situation. I bought him out. He left. And he said to me, one of the reasons that he was going to leave the business was because he felt that things were getting untenable. It was going to hurt our friendship. So he wanted to stay friends. But at some point during the buyout process, he stopped talking to me. Yeah. Wouldn't return my calls.
Wow.
And it just hurt me like nobody's business. I'm a sensitive man. And, to this day, we don't speak the way we used to speak. I think in the last 2.5 years, we've spoken once. And even when we did speak, I got the sense that he was being polite, but he was certainly not interested in rekindling the friendship. And
yeah,
it's the business is, when we were together, the business was at a certain stage. I grew it above what it was with the two of us. And then COVID hit and we took a bit of a tank. Now we're working on getting it back to where it was prior to that. But I got to tell you, at a level of friends, it's disappointing. At a level of business, he probably did me a favor. He did.
He did actually. He did you a major favor, bud. You're and that now. You're gonna more appreciate that in the future. I was friends with him since I was 12, and we've been friends for let's see, we started our business. I was 22, so we were friends for 10 years, and we were best buds. Like done almost everything together growing up. We lived together as roommates. We graduated high school. He went to his job. I was supposed to go to college, and so we were best buds, man. We were, you know how tight you are with those people from high school and junior high when you grow up. And so we were just, I felt like I could trust him beyond a shadow of a doubt. For business for 13 years, I could trust him beyond a shadow of a doubt. He was the most. He came from and I'm not shaming anybody, I'm just painting a picture, but he came from a redneck community. His family was very redneck. They like working in the fields and cows, and that's a very Sioux business. But he had trouble with our white collar sort of business. But I could be the visionary, and we had a great partnership. I could be the visionary, and I could be the guy who'd do everything. You would dump me into a jungle. I was the Vietnam dude, Army Ranger who could go in, build you a village, and then he would come in and run the village. I could give him the mundane stuff that would make me mental. Like he could do the accounting, or he could do the books, or he could manage the widgets, and he was very good at that. And so we made a great team because we had the visionary, we had the hard work, rudimentary stuff that makes me mental. And of course, he couldn't do the visionary. I'd send him home with the yellow pads, say, come up with some ideas, and he'd come back with nothing. And so we worked great as a partnership for a long time. And I built companies, some of them were good. I think we had over 28 different corporations we owned or invested in at any given time. Some failed. There was a certain point once we got beyond 3 core businesses and our jewel crown that, we try stuff that wouldn't work, or we invest in stuff, or we buy people out. And I'm talking about in the book about how I used to take companies out of bankruptcy or ones that were on the border of bankruptcy, and my experience that I learned from why entrepreneurs fail. And so we were tight, really tight. People would sue us, we'd sue them. We always had a lot of collections. So, we'd spend time in court. They'd be suing us over commission deals because like, I wrote an invoice, sales, you should pay me the full commission, even though I'm not there to close it. And you're like, yeah, well, 50% of your sales don't close. That you're suing us for 100% of your sales. We always had to, when you get money and you get success, this, people sue you. It's just like a game. People sue you, whether they're rich or poor. It just becomes a war. And so we'd always have to deal with that. And so I could trust him like you could trust somebody in the mob. I mean, it was just, we had that level of trust, and I would go to the mat for him over anything. I used to even just kind of joke, like, if he did something, we'd probably be in prison together. We were that tight. We were that trustworthy. I mean, there's nobody that I could trust beyond a shot. I trusted him better than I trust my own mother or parent. So, to have him betray me like that I write about in the book was
it must have sucked.
It must have sucked, but it became what I found out later. It was like when Howard Stern. I don't know if you've been a Howard Stern fan or remember him and Jackie.
I was until the pandemic. Now I hate his guts. He's a piece of crap.
Yeah. So back in the day, in the 90s, there was Jackie Mattingly, who used to write a lot of jokes for, I think, Playboy or Penthouse. He was the joke man, Jackie the Joke Man.
Jackie the Joke Man, sure.
Yeah. If you watched the movie, I think people know the story. So Howard Stern had Jackie as a sidekick. And for years, he built the whole brand of Howard Stern and stuff and Jackie Mattingly. One day, Jackie and him separate business. And Howard Stern thinks it's over. He thinks he's lost his mojo, his co-host, his sidekick. And he goes through depression. He goes through, a cathartic moment. He's like, no one's ever going to think I'm funny. No one's ever going to think I'm interesting. What Howard Stern realizes after going through that is it's always been Howard Stern all along. Howard Stern's always been the guy. It wasn't Jackie. Jackie was riding on his table. And from what you've told me, it sounds like your partner was doing the same thing. You've always been the guy, the idea guy. And I found the same thing when I went through mine. Because the beauty of it is you don't leave behind something that you love, that you're passionate about it. And the fact that he left this behind and you're the guy, that's the power. And that's the most important thing for people to realize that are in our situations.
We live in a time, man, where folks like me need to stand up for the things we believe in. I believe in freedom. I believe very strongly in freedom. I believe strongly in free enterprise. And I do what I do because I want to strengthen the free enterprise and the capitalist system. That's my why. And I want entrepreneurs to win. The more entrepreneurs we have, the more freedom wins. So the more successful, like I got this vision, #billion millionaires. Nicky Billion, billion millionaires, man, the billion millionaire movement. And in terms of what I do for men, I believe we're living in a time where men and masculinity are under assault. And you can see, with the banning of Andrew Tate from almost all major social media platforms, that anybody who speaks up for masculinity is a target. Now, sure, maybe Andrew Tate could have done it more artfully in some ways, but I've listened to his content. I decided once they banned him, you know what? Before I kind of like dismissed him. I got to be honest, I wasn't a fan at all, but I didn't really listen to his stuff. I said, okay, let me take some time, let me invest some time and check him out. 98% of what he says is 100% on point. 2% of it's dumb as shit. You know what I mean?
Global bombastic.
Yeah. But 98% of it's on point. And because he spoke to the concerns of men, he got banned. What the hell is that? That's garbage, right? So for me, it's important to stand up for men. It's important to be a voice for men. And, Andrew, no offense, buddy, but you're 35 years old. I'm 55. There's some shit you got wrong, pure and simple. And I'm going to teach you how to get it right. I'm going to teach the other young men how to get it right. No, you don't go and sleep with any and all women that you can get a hold of. You commit to one woman at some point. You get married. You have children. You become a part of a society. That's your job. No, you don't go have sex with 60 women just because you can. I'm not saying he did that, but you know what I mean? He's a man who said I could have a girlfriend and I can sleep with multiple women. I don't know. I mean, I just made that number up. That was a little bit of bombast on my part. But the fact of the matter is, you knock Andrew Tate down, he's going to come back on other platforms, which he has. He's on Rumble right now. Good for him. He's on Getter. He's on Parler. He's on a whole bunch of these new platforms. But those of us that are still on all the other platforms, like me, I'm not, the biggest man in the internet like he was, obviously. But I got a decent following. I'm going to keep speaking about freedom. I'm going to keep speaking about manhood and masculinity. And I'm going to be speaking out against censorship. And inside of what I do in my business, I help people who are entrepreneurs make $1 million a year. That's my goal. I want to help turn you into a millionaire if you're not a millionaire already. And I want to help get you to $1 million a year. That's my shtick. All right. That's what I'm all about. And when I get to do that for people, it's good. It's good. The world becomes better. Our society becomes stronger. So, you listen to the show, you like who I am, you like what I'm all about, you're going to know this. You're going to say, okay, you know what? I want to be a millionaire. I want to make $1 million. If you're not making $1 million, if you're not a millionaire, let's face it, you're going to struggle. That's a fact. Like it or not, that's a fact. So let's get in here. Let's get it going for you. That's what it's all about from my perspective. I call myself the millionaire maker. I didn't come up with that. Someone else did, but I adopted it because I've made a bunch of people millionaires. I'm thrilled about that, brother. I'm thrilled about that. Let's make more people millionaires, man. Let's make 10, 20 more before the end of this year. That's what I say.
Definitely. And even then, you got to make 3 million because, you lose most of it to taxes. That's a joke. But no, it's good that you're doing that. I'm in the same thing. I like Andrew Tate. I thought he was a great sort of prophet. There's no perfect prophet. I've been studying the male thing. I've been a guy who's single all of his life. I'm 54. I've dated all my life. You heard some of my story on the podcast she came on with me. I've owned a bikini team. I've owned a modeling and acting agency. I've been friends with Ron Rice from Ryan Tropic and used to be able to go around the world. And, I understand the dating markets. I understand what these young men are going through. I grew up in an environment where you had to go up and cold approach a girl in a bar or a club or, in a grocery store. And you had to impress her. You had to finesse her and to get her phone number. And, I used to have 400 of the hottest girls on my phone. At any given time, I used to show up at clubs like Hugh Hefner with 6 girls and we'd, go do the whole thing. When you have a modeling agency, you have to do the thing. It's all about the show. So, I know what that's like. So I know what these young men are going through. I see the simping online. I see the weakness online. Beacons of leadership. Leadership is a skill that is very masculine. And if you're a woman, you're very emotional and very estrogen based, you have to operate in your masculine to lead because it's a masculine thing. And women can do that and they do that very well. But it's a masculine thing. To take a tribe, to take a team of people, which goes back to our caveman times, and go, hey, you and you and you, we're going to go kill that dinosaur. We're going to kill that woolly mammoth. Where the hell it is. We're going to do something. We're going to go kill something. We're going to fish something. We're going to achieve something. That is masculine. And so we go out, we hunt stuff, we figure out how to kill the woolly mammoth. We go use all of our physical dexterity, which we're built with from a biology thing. And so the natural version of leadership is masculine. And women can do it too. They just have to operate in their masculine. But it's more innate to our nature as men to be leaders and to make money, to be successful, be providers. That's really what you're talking about when you're talking about making money. You're talking about being a provider. When a man makes money, he goes, how can I raise a family? How can I give this to other people? How can I share this? And how can I build security for my family and provisioning for my paternal instincts? And so that's what we do with our biological imperative. So yeah, this is all really important stuff. And I see these kids nowadays that they grew up without alpha fathers. I was lucky enough in my generation to grow up with an alpha grandfather and an alpha father. So I understood what it was. I grew up with 2 different types of women in my life. I grew up with very angry women who had childhood trauma, emotional suicide. Were always very angry and bitter, mainly because the people that they're involved with weren't operating in their masculine. So the women had to operate in their masculine because the men were operating.
They don't like that.
in their feminine. They don't like being in that position. And then I had the alpha grandfather who was very masculine, very strong, and he had a nice feminine, wonderful wife who was very happy. They lived a very successful life. And like I grew up watching these two different opposing women angry over here, and these women are very happy over here. And so that's when I discovered very early on as a child the importance of a lot of this stuff and being masculine. But no, it's good that you're reaching out. I've seen your podcast, The Sovereign Man, I think it is.
Yeah.
And it's good because these young men need a Andrew Tate. Now, there are some things he says that's bombastic. There are some things that, the feminine movement, Gloria Steinem said
goofy,
that were bombastic. Yeah. There were same things that were hypocritical about that whole movement and her. I mean, I'm sure she inspired some people and everything else, but no prophet is perfect. But, we're seeing this right now on TikTok. I mean, there are certain hashtags. I've been posting about this on Facebook. There are certain hashtags where men are stupid. Hashtag men are stupid. Hashtag men rob men or scam men. But men can't make those hashtags or else they'll be banned. You can't even put up a hashtag that says women are stupid. But there's 5 billion men are stupid hashtags. It's literally banned on social media. And so you can put up all this misandry, but there's no.
No, misandry is the order of the day, and it needs to stop.
Yeah.
It needs to stop, and it's not going to stop. So what we got to do is we got to just rise above it and keep pushing through. And look, I'm not going to go knocking women as a group. I am going to knock the individual woman who act badly, who behave badly. There are unfortunately too many women that are being raised to be misandrist. For my listener who doesn't know what that means, that's, misandry is to men, as to misogyny is to women. Okay. Yeah. So
it's a hatred of men.
It's a hatred of men. Exactly. Yeah. And the truth of the matter is this. Okay. What Andrew Tate is correct on is that, men and women have different strengths, right? Different strengths. Men, for example, are physically stronger. Women are better at empathy. Like one of the things that women do really well is they get together and have friendships and groups. Men suck at that. And that's a problem. It's one of the reasons there's so much mental health distress among men these days, right? And women, that's not an issue for women, right? And women women are able to get out there and organize. And that's one of the reasons, the women's movement was successful, because they were able to do that. Now men today suck at that. We're not organized. We're kind of just a whole bunch of little groups going along. If we did get organized, we would very quickly turn things around, and the truth of the matter is we are physically stronger. There's no two ways about it. Are you freaking kidding me, man? We're physically stronger. If there's a war, I want men going out there and fighting. I don't want the women going out there and fighting. Some women want to go fight, knock yourself out, to be sure. But, we need physical badasses out there doing what they do. And that's primarily men. If we got to have war, we need men. And one of the problems in our society right now is men are becoming feminized and pussified and wussified. That's not good. There's this meme on the internet, Chinese military recruiting ad, right? Martial music, big, strong looking Chinese soldiers, fantastic recruiting ad. Russian military recruiting ad, Russian soldiers, martial music, big, strong Russian soldiers in there. Fantastic recruiting ad. U.S. military recruiting ad. This wimpy looking, androgynous dude going, let's talk about pronouns. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're going to put those dudes against those dudes in a shooting war?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've seen
if that happens. We can't.
Yeah, we've seen 3 generations of this watering down of men. The other thing we've seen is men have lost their ability to tribe up, because we're good at, like you say, tribing up. That's what we're good at. But we're good at, we don't have to talk to each other. You and I can go fishing together and say 5 words to each other, but we'll have a bond of loyalty and manhood that women won't be able to have. If you understand women and they really work together socially, they team up socially, but they compete very heavily in jealousy and sabotage each other very well.
Yeah,
In fact, one of the things I remember reading, this isn't, I remember reading this when I was a kid in Harvard Business Review, who sends their authors to our show. This was a study that was done, and this was like 25 years ago, so I don't have it at my record. But basically, they cited one of the reasons men rise to the level of corporations, of leadership, and they rise together is they club together and they create tribes, and they're very loyal to each other. And one of the problems that women have in corporations is they undercut each other and they backstab each other and they fight and they undercut each other. And so they don't rise because they pretend they're working together. Like, I'll give you an example. My girlfriends used to come home and they'd be like, Betty at to work and she does this and Betty does that and Jane does this and blah, 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 blah. And my best friend, she's doing this and blah, blah, blah. And I would hear about how they would talk about their friends. And I'd be like, let me talk to you something. You talk about your friends like I talk about enemies I want to murder. Okay. I don't talk about my friends that way as a man. My friends, they call me, what's that old meme? It's the old thing from, it's saying, hey man, we're going to go do some, we're going to go hurt some people. I can't tell you what it is. You can't ask me about it later, but we're going to go do some shit. And the guy goes, what car are we taking? Okay. That's kind of how men work. And I don't mean in just a violent sense. I mean, in a mental sense, as we get together, there's shit we can do with our brains and how we do it. But I'll credit this to Rollo Tomassi because I don't want to steal his shit. But Rollo Tomassi talks about how one of the things that has been attacked is our ability to go do things. We used to go to the bars together. So you and I would go to the bars. We'd have a beer after work. Hey, how's it going, man? It's going good, Nicky. I got these problems with the wife. I've got the kids at home. Oh man, have a beer. Let's talk about this thing. Let's, rub elbows, masculinity again. Or we can go do it. We pump each other up and we go out and do it again. We've lost that. And the problem is women have invaded those things, especially with feminism, and destroyed them. The locker room. You can't be in the locker room without a woman now on ESPN. In the NFL, you can't have bars anymore. So we don't really get together anymore. In fact, the only time a man can usually get together with other men is in the dirty, filthiest part of his home. I mean, look at men nowadays. They're relegated to their garage. If they want to go have their place and their peace, they can't even be in their own home with their wife and children. Their wife goes, hey, get your ass out to the garage. Or, even more desperate. I got to build a man cave so I can
well, listen,
for men.
I don't know. Like I don't know that that's 100% accurate, at least in my world. Because look, me and the men, we get together a lot inside our community, inside a Sovereign Man. And I'm not 55. I don't go to bars. I haven't gone to bars for a long time. But I go have a meal with my men.
There you go.
We go shooting together. We go hunting together. We go axe throwing together. We go knife shopping together. That's the sort of thing we do. And we have a conversation in that fashion. And for a lot of men, that's not happening. And that's one of the reasons why folks like Andrew Tate rose up. And that's why folks like myself and Sovereign Man, we rose up. Let's circle back to the business end of this conversation. I probably should interview you on my men's podcast because a lot of this stuff is more appropriate for the folks listening to that than for the business podcast. But we'll quickly circle back here. So the Beacons of Leadership, what's powerful about that book is that uplifts your brand and makes it easier for you to get consulting clients, correct?
Yeah. I mean, people call me and they're like, hey, we read the book. And I'm like, you read it? And they go, hey, we want to work with you and stuff. I mean, the reason I titled Beacons of Leadership is because to me, being a leader is like being a lighthouse, like a beacon. That's why on the cover, it's right there.
I like it.
There's a lighthouse. And so you set forth this vision of who you are as a leader that your employees look to. If you're a parent, you're a leader. I write the book in the sense that everyone is a leader or has the potential to be a leader. If you're a parent, you're a father, you're already a leader. You may not know it yet. Your kids look to you and go, okay, lead us. And hopefully, I'm sure you are. from what you're tuned into. But you've got to be a lead. You can be a leader. A person on a street who witnesses a crime and steps in and says, "Hey, you're not going to do that." That's a leader. There's all these moments and places in life where everybody can be a leader, and that beacon shines forth just like a lighthouse up on a rock, and it sends a message and communication that, hey, I'm a leader, I'm leading, here's my message. It shines through the light that comes out, and that's what sets forth. And if you're if you have employees, they're looking to that. If you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, they're looking to your light. They're looking to your morals, your ethics, what you're doing. They also notice if you're not doing them. So if you're out there being a CEO of a big Fortune 500 company, and you're like, we need an honest corporation. Everyone must be honest. And meanwhile, the employees are going, yeah, you're stealing from the company and doing unethical things. Yeah, we see right through that. And so it's making sure that that message is consistent and congruent.
I like it, man. I like it. So where do people pick up a copy of the book, brother?
They can go to Amazon.com. Anywhere you find books are sold. Even Alameda bookstores have it, I think. It's everywhere on the internet. You can go to beaconsleadership.com, my website, if you want to order like an autograph copy and all that good stuff. Check it out. Yeah, it's a pretty good book.
I like it.
It's good for if you need something to put your coffee on. It's a good coffee holder.
I love it, man. I love it. All right. So listen, Chris, we like to end off each episode by asking you as our guest expert for your laser share top 3 expert action steps. These are your best 3 pieces of advice for my listener to take their business to the next level. So what do you say?
I would give you Stoicism. And there's several different things that I subscribe in Stoicism, and let me pull these up here on my thing. But Stoicism is really important. And what's the thing I'm looking for in Stoicism? So if you study Stoicism, it's really great for manhood and it's great for leadership. And there's a few different principles in it that are really important. One of my favorites is amplify, and it talks about how important it is in human greatness for being able to live a fulfilled life. And it's about realizing sometimes that what happens in life to you, you can't always control, but you can control what happens to you, or how you interpret that data, et cetera, et cetera. And so I encourage people to go study Stoicism and the concept around that, because it will really focus you on life. The other thing in Stoicism that I encourage people, and this is a lot of stuff for, it's a bit macabre, and some people have a hard time realizing it, but it's talking about death and staying present, and how you use Stoicism to take and do that. And it's called Momento Mori. And Memento Mori. And it's a philosophy of where you realize that time is short, that you don't know how much time you have in life, and you embrace that, and you realize that your death is going to happen. It is inevitable. And for a lot of people, that's a bit macabre to take and embrace. But with Memento Mori, I've got like different signs on my refrigerator. There's different rings or amulets you can get to remind you that death will happen. You will die. And a lot of people live their lives where they put off living because they're like, I got plenty of time, And a lot of those people aren't with us today. You don't have time. And so Memento Mori basically means remember that you will die, that all you have is your time today, your presence. You don't have the future. You don't have your past. That's gone. You can't fix that. You can't change that. It's about being present in the moment, about being present today. And what you do today is going to affect your business life. It's going to affect your personal life, connecting with your loved ones, connecting with your business. You can sit here right now when we get off this podcast and you can go, I don't know, go play some video games. Or you can be like, you know what? I'm going to sit down with the yellow pad. And I'll focus on what do I need to start doing each and every day to be successful, because that's what builds a successful life. Memento Mori. You don't know what the future holds. You may not be here tomorrow, but you have to accept that. You can't be afraid of that. You can't think about that because you don't have a choice in that. And that's okay. Memento Mori teaches that remember, tomorrow you will die. So what will you do with today? How will you build your legacy? How will you make a difference? And so I recommend people get into Stoicism. There's a whole lot of other aspects to Stoicism and everything else that we could probably go into. But, sit down and go, what am I achieving today? What am I achieving tomorrow? What's my plan in life? What's my 10-year, my 5-year plan? Even though you may not achieve it, what do you need to do today to get those things done? And so I really recommend people look into Stoicism, Memento Mori, amplify, and realize that being present is super important. I had this problem I was having for a lot of times where I wasn't present, and I knew I wasn't present. My dogs would come up that I love, that I like, my children. They would sit beside me and I'd be petting them, and I just still wouldn't be there. I'd be in 50 different places. I'd be totally disconnected. I couldn't be intimate with people where, they'd be talking to me and I'd be like off in 50 different places. And, I just was lost. I wasn't present. And I realized it. And I just felt like I was fighting through this wall of all times to just be there, be in the moment, and to appreciate that moment and all that good stuff. I think the other thing I would throw in there, maybe a third item, is gratitude. Every Sunday I have a day of gratitude, and it's on my calendar. Every Sunday is a day of gratitude, or I sit down with some private time and some reflective time, and I go, what am I very thankful for right now? What's important to me? And what do I have that I'm very happy for? And that's very important, because you focus on what you have. And that's really what can make you great, because if you focus on what you have, you can amplify that. You can make things better. And until then, you tend to take things for granted, and you think your life sucks and you think it's horrible. If you reach that position, focus on gratitude. Say, what in my life is really working? Sometimes the darkest moments of your life, or the bottoms of your life, you need to sit down and do there's an old saying about a dipstick. You need to do a dipstick test and check out what's working for your life.
I like it.
And go, where am I succeeding? And you know what? One of my favorite things to do is I used to go watch, when I was really depressed, I go through depression problems. I go watch the movie, the show Cops, the TV show Cops. And after about 2 hours of watching Cops, you realize your damn life is pretty good. Like if you don't have guys kicking in your door, and you're wearing a shirt, and you're not wearing a shirt on your mobile home thing, drinking a beer, and the cops go, you need to stand up, and you're like, fight me, or the cops aren't picking you up going, yeah, we're getting you today again, Leonard, way to go, you fucked up. You watch the TV show Cops, and after about 2 hours you go, my life's pretty damn good. I'm not going to prison all the time. I don't have guys kicking in my door.
No, there you go. All right, we're going to have to wrap this up, brother. So those are 3 really great expert action steps. And I'm going to organize to bring you on the men's podcast. I think we should talk Stoicism on that. So let's make sure we do that. So listener, Chris Voss, The Real Deal, his book, Beacons of Leadership, worth buying. Go to Amazon, pick it up. Check out his podcast. We're going to put all that information in the show notes. Make sure that you do that. If you like this conversation, or if it provoked you or ticked you off, because I know we were a little bit controversial today, good. Share it with somebody, have them have a listen, and make sure that you benefit from what you heard today. Chris Voss, thank you so much for being on the show with me today, my brother.
Thank you. It was wonderful to be on the show, and thanks to your audience for having me.
Oh, it's an honor, my friend. And that wraps up another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. To find out more about today's incredible guest, the one and only Chris Voss, go to the show notes at thethoughtleaderrevolution.com, or wherever you happen to listen to this podcast episode, be it iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Audible. Until next time, goodbye.
This episode has been brought to you by eCircleAcademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.